Good morning again. The fourth commandment. All right. Let's go to page 74. The fourth commandment. The centerpiece of all authority, which is why we are in the state of chaos here in the West, because God doesn't know as well as we do. It says, honor your father and your mother. What does this mean? We should fear, love God so that we do not despise or anger our parents and other authorities, but honor them, serve and obey them, love and cherish them. Now, I want to skip to 50 if I could, heading 50, where it says, God requires us in this commandment to honor our parents and other authorities by regarding them as God's representative. And in Ephesians 6:2-3, do everyone see where I'm at? Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise that it may go well with you and that you may have lived long in the land. Folks, one of the reasons why I was so adamant about, a couple of years ago, about the whole bathroom potty wars and marriage between gay people, it's because, first of all, let me say to you that this commandment is in the second tablet of the law. That means that it's known naturally to us, that we know that when we have a mother, that she cares for us and that she nurtures us, as much as our society does want to reorganize that. The truth of the matter is that biologically and naturally, and in so many ways, the mother and the father are the key and the root of all civilization. You break down that civilization when you break down the family. You break down the family by having such things as no-fault divorce, abortion, gay marriage, and now we're starting to talk about polygamy, and people are marrying themselves. Yeah, that's a new thing now. Yeah, they're marrying themselves legally. And by the way, this goes hand in hand with if you look at the level of crime and chaos in our society. I think of, how many of you remember the Broadway show and the movie West Side Story? West Side Story. Remember the scene where he sings, I'm a social disease. Basically, that was the beginning, if you will, of the breakdown of what we know as the neurosis of our modern day. You cannot sustain a civilization, and this again is natural law. Yes, God speaks to us through His commandment, but you cannot have a society where the family breaks down. Even in third world countries, the family tries to hold together. One of the saddest things about slavery is that families would be torn apart. Nobody knew who their mother was or who their father was. Folks, and I've said this from the pulpit, you know, our president, make America great again. You know, yeah, maybe the market is up. Who knows? The market is up. The market is down. Real estate is up. Real estate is down. But America cannot come back. It cannot come back unless we have the family. Unless we have mothers and fathers who stay married together through thick and thin, who raise their children, who nurture their children, care for them, and teach them to be God-fearing citizens. Really, there's no other way about that. So after that, this commandment is not simply just for parents. It is the seat of all authority. So any time the parent is the common denominator according to God and according to nature. Now, if that breaks down, you know, if you have a father or mother that's really totally dysfunctional, it runs into serious issues for that child. And sometimes the state or the church has to intervene in order to pluck that child out of that situation. But that is only an exception to the rule. And even that is authority based on the fourth commandment. I don't know what we can do to bring back all my nieces and nephews, all of them, every single one of them except one, is either not married, is having relations with other people, they're living together, they're just, and they wonder why there's no cohesiveness, there's no meat to their relationship. Now granted, I'm all for the one realizing that parents can be very dysfunctional, neurotic, and all that other stuff, sinful. There's nobody more neurotic than my mother or my father was. Well, short of me, because I got all their neurosis. Boy, did they give it to me. But that still was important for me and for most children, or all children, to have a mother and father. Somebody was telling me, a friend of mine lives up in Canada, and this woman and man have been divorced, and the son is in the Navy. And who knew that the Canadians had a Navy? But they have a Navy, and he's in the Navy. Anyway, divorce is usually not the beginning of a relationship. It's not the end of a relationship. It's the beginning of a relationship. You never really get away from your ex until after your children are legal age. You just never do. It's very uncomfortable, very, but anyway, I've enough said on that. Number 48, we're back at 48 now. Who are parents and other authorities? Parents are fathers, mothers, guardians. Other authorities are all those whom God has placed over us at home, in government, at school, at the place where we work, and in the church. Now, have any of you noticed something about the schools that we have now? Principals are not principals anymore. They have a protocol that they have to follow, that they must follow, in order to facilitate education. The curriculum is not chosen by the principal. Most of the teachers are not hired by the principal. He or she might have some input as to who he or she hires as a teacher, but basically it's centralized, at least in Guilford County, who you can call as a sub, who you can hire as a teacher, who is going to be your janitor. So the principal is really not the principal. They've plucked away all his or her authority, so how now can she or he be responsible for the day-to-day operations of a school? Well, the same thing applies in so many areas. Everything now has has, you have to do the checklist. My doctor at the VA, she can't, there's certain medications that she can only give me 30-day supply. She cannot give me any opioids or narcotics. I have to go to pain management. Now, you mean to tell me that this woman has gone to medical school and she knows me and I know her, that she can't prescribe certain medications? That's what we have now. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Now, the reason why they're doing that is because of the, especially in the VA, the opioid or the opiates epidemic. You know, veterans were eating them like candy, and they were giving them like candy. So what do they do? They say basically, well, you have to go to pain management, and that has a whole set of other issues. My point is this: what's happening in society is authority is being taken away from those who are supposedly responsible, be it principals, parents, and so forth, in the very structure of our society, and they're taking it away from them little by little, so that what does that lead to, folks? Is anybody responsible? Because centralization or authority that's in, they call it the mothership in Guilford County. If you call up and say, my teacher just did this or did that, and I can't fire her or him, well, I don't know what you can do about it. She can't be fired. Well, but she's doing this. Well, see, years ago, a principal could do what? You're out of here. You're out of here. You're bad for my school. Same thing with a teacher. The authority of a teacher in the classroom has been taken away so that she or he has a complete protocol as to what you can do, from even what bathrooms they can use. The first thing that I thought of with these potty laws, by the way, it takes, when I was subbing for Guilford County, it took about 10 minutes to do a potty check, you know, to have them all go through the bathroom. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when, you know, Joe and Frank discover that they can go into the girls' room? It's absurd. It truly is absurd. But so that be it. So all authority comes from the fourth commandment, and it starts with the parents. The parents were the foundation of all civilization. What does God forbid in the fourth commandment? God forbids us to despise our parents and other authorities by not respecting them or angering them by our disobedience or by any kind of sin. Proverbs 23:22. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Again, I can say to you that we have care facilities, right? We have care facilities where we send our aged. One of the reasons why Mary and I have not moved out to the Boston is because my mother, the Reichsführer, she wants to stay in her house. How do you kick your mother out of the house that she's lived in since how long? Would you want to be kicked out of your house? No. So now, you know, we try to do the best we can. But caring for your parents is ultimately the children's responsibility. Now, if you choose to exert that responsibility and put it in a care facility, that's okay, all right? And I know some of you, I know my mother is deathly afraid of, you know, somebody called it the rest home. That's what they used to old school call it. I heard that yesterday. I don't want to go to a rest home. That's what I heard. But if you do that, do you still relinquish authority? If you send your mother or father to a rest home or a care facility, are you still not responsible for them?
Yes, you are.
You most certainly are. So, you know, just to share this with you, I told my mother, I said, Ma, we're going to have to do something in 3 years because this is getting old, going back and forth, spending 2 hours meeting my wife here and doing this and that. You know, it's going crazy. And I said to her, I said, you know, Abernathy is a really nice, you know, care facility. And I said to her, I said, Mom, I'll try to do whatever I can to help you to be healthier, to be more functional. If I think that that's to have you stay here, then I will. But ultimately, it's my responsibility.
And it's our responsibility. If you have to put them in a care facility, like we did my mother, it's very important to go and visit them. If you can't every day, I mean, really, really often. Some of those people don't have anybody that wants to visit them.
Yeah. One of the things that I can tell you is, and this is another thing, don't always go at the same time. Spot check them. That's you know, being a pastor and making shut-in calls. I'm going to tell you something. As soon as I walk in the room, if I have my clerical on, those nurses' aides, they just light up and, oh, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, look, care for you, let's fix you up a little bit. You know, now, you protest this too much, you know. I bet you if I wasn't around, you wouldn't even be here, you know. So it's important and imperative that we just don't drop our parents off in the care facility and hope for the best. It doesn't work that way. Again, this is a distortion of what God has placed in society as a natural way of things. Your parents train you to grow up, and then when they get older, you take care of them. And sometimes, folks, it's really difficult. Really difficult.
What you think about the parents raising you as a child? It was difficult for them.
Of course, but that whole thing is broken down, Mom. We don't appreciate our parents anymore. You know, if our parents go out and buy us a smartphone that's worth $1,500, you know, and they just give it to us and they pay for college and they buy our new car, or whatever the situation is, have we not become so ungrateful for what we have and what we get, and even our parents? I think that's some of it. So when the child grows up and the parents then become aged and need care, well, the child says, well, you didn't do anything for me. No, you just cost me $250,000 raising you with clothes and medical care and food, and, you know, there's absolutely no thankfulness at all. Remember I told you that there are three things that, somebody said that there are three things that really define our age. One is ungratefulness. The other is, ungratefulness, lies, and arrogance. And those three things are part and parcel for today. And so anyway, Romans 13:2, therefore whoever resists authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Now, one of the great criticisms of Lutheranism in Germany during the war, before the war, was that there wasn't a whole lot of resistance to Hitler by the Lutherans, by the Christians in Germany, because they said basically all authority comes from God, and if you have authority, then you need to listen to authority, right? But the Lutheran theologians forgot one thing, that when, in fact, your parents or anybody that's charged over us with authority asks us to do that which God has said not to do or to do, it then becomes a sin. One of the things is abortion is legal today, right? Abortion is legal. It is hideous. It's heinous. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And just because it's legal doesn't mean that we cannot resist it in some ways, or in all ways that we can. So, and there's plenty of things that are legal that are immoral, and there are plenty of things that are moral that are illegal. So we need to be diligent in understanding what it is that God expects of us, and that which the world expects of us. I'll give you an example. We have a situation, a moral dilemma, if you will, that you're a wife, and your wife, and this wife is beat up by her husband. Okay? Well, they have a moral dilemma because it says that you know, nobody should, you know, what is it, the fifth commandment? You should help and befriend your neighbor in his bodily needs and so forth and so on. And then you have this whole, I just gave you a whole spiel about how mothers and fathers should stay together, right? Well, in this case, in this particular case, I believe it is important and imperative that you realize the fact that God says to your husband that you shouldn't beat your wife. So if you do that to me, I'm out of here. But again, that goes back to what? No-fault divorce. Years ago, if your husband beat you up, you had to prove that he beat you up, and then you could get a divorce. Well, now you don't. Now you just, you know, you go online and you file Divorce 101, and you get divorced. But no husband has the right to abuse his. No husband has the right to abuse his wife, and I can also say no wife has the justification to abuse her husband. The other thing, may I say this? May I say this? There's a big, big movement in marriages today to separate money. How many of you have heard that with your children or some of your relatives? Now you mean to tell me if you are sharing your very nature, your intimate, most intimate moments, you can't share your money? Now with my wife, of course, whatever is ours is hers, and whatever hers is hers. No.
That's what we used to say.
Huh?
That's what we used to say.
Yeah. Folks, this is, if in fact, if the trust in a marriage is what it's supposed to be, and if you can trust somebody with your very life, and they can't trust you with their money, and pool your money together to raise kids and do all that other stuff, I don't know, that's not right. set out the budget, we sit down and we set up the budget for the year, we make decisions. Some of those decisions might be bad, some of those decisions might be good. And then she implements them, she pays the bills. I don't have to worry about it. But we have a system where I can look and see exactly where our money is, what it's doing, or what it ain't doing, you know, and whatever. Again, this is something new. Can you imagine a pioneer, a husband and a wife on the outskirts of Oklahoma, trying to till the ground and so forth, and you know, the husband says, that's my money, and the wife says, this is my money, and this really gets into really a situation whereby there's always a certain distrust, and that's really not a good thing. So, I know I've talked a lot. Did I give you a little bit to think over? Marriage is a wonderful institution. And anybody who's been married for more than 5 minutes realizes that it takes a lot of work. But that work is important work. And it is work that we should embrace. My wife and I have had some difficult times.
What family hasn't?
What family hasn't? What family hasn't? My mother and father, it's funny, they used to, and you gotta remember, my father was an Italian, my mother kind of became Italian osmosis, you know. They used to yell a lot at each other in a Christian sort of way, you know. It was, if you ever watch Italian film, watch a Sophia Loren film, she just yells, you know, that's what she does. Well, they yelled a lot, but I'll tell you one thing, push comes to shove. My mother loved my father, and my father loved my mother, and they would do anything in the world for them. Now, some of that was dysfunctional, some of that was whatever, but anyway.
And another thing about it,
Yes.
you hear people say, well, we've been married 50 or 60 or 70 years, we never fought. That's a lie.
I don't think, well, some have,
Compromise is losing.
some, you know, one of the things about marriage is, you gotta know when to hold, you gotta know when to fold, you gotta know when to walk away.
You gotta know who cooks.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, my wife had a bad day yesterday. She had a really bad day. If you were on Facebook, she told the whole world, I'm having a bad day. And everything I tried to do to help her, and I did nothing. I just woke up, you know. And by the way, if you don't know this, we really value our Saturdays together alone in the parsonage because you know, my mother's always there. She's like, you know, the cloud, you know, over at Jamestown. But in any case, man, and there was reasons for it, but I discovered, oh, this was about 20 years ago, when she gets in those moods, you know what I do? I get lost. I can get lost in the bathroom if I have to, but I'm getting lost because if I try to talk her out of it, I'm wrong. If I try to talk her into it, I'm wrong. So the best thing to do is just
turn on your heel and walk away.
that's all, you know.
It always takes two to argue. Now, people can disagree about things in a marriage, but it takes two to argue. And one just walks off till you cool down or whatnot.
Yes.
There's nothing to it. You sit down and you talk about it. There's nothing to it. So you don't have a fight or anything like that.
And that's a strategy that you learn, you know. That's a strategy.
No, they just come natural for us.
Oh, wow.
We didn't have any problem.
You know, I wish my father and mother would have learned that like 30 years into their marriage, because they made matters worse by trying to solve the problem at that moment. And sometimes you need to walk away and say, I love you, honey, but this is not the time to talk right now, or whatever. And I'm not ignoring you. I'm not putting you off. I just think everybody needs to go in their separate, when you have a fight, everybody in their separate corners, pour some water on your face and get the blood clots kicked out and get ready for the next round, Anyway, all right, we're running late here. I hope that we've had some words here that can help. Let's bow our heads and say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.